There is definitely something special about making things with your own two hands. Today, I'm going to show you how to make this little tip tray out of walnut. Welcome back to Highwheel Woodworks. I'm Tim Eggers. We're here at the router table where we're going to make a tip tray out of this nice piece of walnut. What I've got set up here is our router bit with a cove bit in it, round over bit. And what we're going to use as our starting and ending points are the ends of the fence here. We're simply going to lower this down onto the bit, bring it through, raise it out on this side. And what that's going to do is that's going to give us a nice groove all the way around the border of our piece. And then we'll switch to a different router to hollow out the bulk of the material in the center. As is always the case, safety comes first in the shop. Obviously, I've got my safety glasses on, and I'm going to protect my ears with my earmuffs. Let's get over here to the router. We're going to put our piece in and run our groove around it initially, with our ends of our fence here being our stop points on all of it. Here we go. Gives us our nice little groove all the way around our piece. We're going to take it over and get the hand router out to get the majority of the rest of this out of there. Let's take it over to the bench and do that. So now that we've got our border groove cut all the way around our piece, I'm going to put it over here into our bench dogs and then our bench vise. We're going to get the regular router out here to cover the rest of it. What I did on the router base is I put a big plate on there so I'd have as much support surface on this as we could get. I'm going to get my depth set and established real quick. Get our cord unraveled here so we can actually use this thing.
What's the rubber band for on the cord?
Well, I put the rubber band on the end of my cord so that when I wrap my cord around my router, I can wrap the rubber band around it and it'll actually stay on the router versus falling off when I'm trying to move it. Nothing more annoying than having your cord fall off when you're in the middle of moving something. I think I need to take that down just a touch. We're a little too deep, so we're going to set it about there. We're going to test it and come back to make sure that our depth is what we want. And this is just a regular straight cut router bit. We've got the depth of a router set where we want it. And I always like to take the cord and throw it over my shoulder so it doesn't get in the way of anything. It looks kind of silly, but I'd rather have it be safe than not. And as always, the earmuffs are important. Routers are obnoxiously loud, so always protect your ears with that. Here we go. We're going to take the center out of here and kind of hog it out. I'll start up at a bit of an angle and lower it down into the piece. And I'm strictly eyeballing this. And we get to our border that's already around it. Knowing that it's not going to be perfect, it's going to involve a good bit of sanding to clean it up. We're going to pattern all the way from one end coming down to the other, so you've got the material that you're going to take off is actually supporting your router plate when you're doing the majority of it. Obviously take it nice and slow. Both hands on the knob. And a good sharp router bit is, of course, always important. It really doesn't take too long to do. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm trying to talk over this, I would have a respirator on to keep this walnut sawdust out of my face and out of my lungs. But for purposes of illustration, I'll sacrifice on this one. When you're done doing that, always turn your router off and then hold it in place until it comes to a complete stop. I don't want to have a router bit running when I pick it up. Always take the router, tilt it away so that router bit is pointing away from you. Let it come to a complete stop. And then let's look at what our result is here. There we have the vast majority of the stock there in the center taken out. It's a little bit high on the ends. We could maybe take just another pass and take a little bit more out of it to reduce the amount of sanding that we got to do, but that gets us real close to where we want to be with making this little tip tray. So what I've done is I've set my bit just a little bit deeper to take off just a little bit more of it. We're going to run it over real quick and clean it up. That finishes it up real nice. Back and forth, that same pattern, making a point not to go too far so you end up inside that radius of the groove we put in initially. Let that sit until it comes to a complete stop. Pull it out, point it away from us. That's much better. That's real nice. And obviously there's going to be some sanding involved. Let's go back over here, grab our brush and get all that nice walnut sawdust off of us. See this? A good idea, huh? Let's get all of our dust off of our project here, off the bench, clean up a little bit, make it look better. That's where we're at. We've got the roughed in part of our tip tray all done. Now it's a matter of going in there and enjoying all the fun of sanding it out to get all those edges nice and smooth and turning it into something that's actually usable. With using a router, you're going to have some router tracks that are going to be in there. Some places where it might be a little higher than others. We can sand all that out, but I don't like sanding. So what I do is I took this old plane that I made into a chisel plane and I can run that down there and I can get some of that stuff off of there. Make it just a little bit easier, a little less sanding. So if you don't have a chisel plane like this, but you do have a shoulder plane like this, if you pop this little thing apart, get rid of that screw in there. Now this goes from being a shoulder plane to a chisel plane. You can get in there in tight spaces and run that in there to get some of those high points off of that piece. Just like running a plane over it. One of the slick dual functions of a neat little plane in the shop. Called a chisel plane. That little bit of effort right there probably saved me a half hour of sanding on this piece. It's going to do a good job. When it comes to these corners, obviously I'm going to take a chisel in there and knock some of those corners down. I'm going to take sandpaper and I'm going to roll it into a cylinder to get into the body of it here. And I'll take a sanding block to get the rest of it nice and cleaned up and nice and smooth. So before we get too far into sanding, I'm noticing one of these corners didn't come out quite as nice as we would like it on the router table. So I'm going to take this little grinding tool here on my drill and just go in there and carve that out a little bit. Just to save us a little sanding time. Pretty easy to do. That kind of cleaned it up a little bit. And we'll give it another shot in there. Much, much better. I can live with that. I can live with that all day long. Now, when it comes to doing the sanding part, I'm going to start out with some 80 grit sandpaper and kind of hog it out a little bit, and then we'll take it down to 120. Something I always do on my sandpaper, that one is 80 grit. That one's 120. Just take a marker and mark what grits they are, because once the sandpaper gets used and a little bit on the crusty side, it's hard to read that little number. It just makes it easier to see. So this is 80 grit. And what I like to do with something small like this is I'll take an old drywall sponge, wrap that sandpaper around there and be able to get in there, and that'll conform a little bit to the shape that we're working on. And that 80 grit will take that down real quick. But when it comes to this corner and sanding that corner, what I like to do is take a pencil, wrap my sandpaper around it like that. Now it's nice and round, and it's going to conform real well to the shape of that radius that we set in there. I can run that across there, get that cleaned up real fast by just doing something so simple as that. We can take it down here on the ends, kind of turn it over a little bit, and just run our ends in there like that to get that surface set. And yeah, I'm going across the grain here. I'm going to have to correct that a little bit down the line. Get those scratch marks out of there. Get that nice and clean. Get this corner nice and clean. And obviously, I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me take this all the way down to the final sanding and finishing and all, but we get this on there, sand that out. The elbow grease part of it pays the rewards. Can end up looking real nice when it's all said and done. It kind of roughs it out and gets it actually pretty smooth. I'm pretty happy with how that's coming out. Fortunately, walnut sand's real easy. You want to call that good enough for 80 grit? Yeah, I'm going to knock this edge down just a touch here. I don't want that edge to be real sharp from the router. We'll knock that down. Knock that one down a little bit too. And then we're pretty good. Obviously, we're going to choke on sawdust too. And again, if it wasn't for the fact that I'd prefer that you hear what I'm talking about, I'd have a respirator on so I wouldn't be sucking up all this sawdust, all this walnut sawdust. And you know you've done too much of it when you blow your nose and you start getting 2x4s out. There's our 120. Again, there's a whole lot more sanding involved than I'm just going to show you here, but it gets you the idea of what we're doing to get this smooth. You know, for a small hand project like this, it does require a good bit of hand sanding to get it accomplished, but it'll get there. After we've had enough sanding adventures, we'll take and we'll knock down these outside edges too, just to get rid of the sharp that's on there. We'll sand up that live edge. And you'll notice when we had this on the router table, that live edge obviously is a little difficult to run on the fence and get it nice and clean. And that's okay. It gives it that rustic, rough kind of look. And the inside line on our tray kind of follows that outside edge. So it's kind of I would call it an added feature. It's pretty neat. We'll sand all these corners down and get it all spiffed up, and it'll look really nice. And ultimately, when we get this done, it's going to come out looking just like this. That's what our project is going to turn out looking like when we get a good finish on it, get it sanded, get it completed. Just a nice little tray. Put your keys in it, put your wallet in it, some change on it, what have you. Set it on the table and put some Hershey Kisses in it or something like that. So that's the basics of making a cool little tray here in the shop. We certainly appreciate you following along. Go ahead and subscribe if you would, and comment on that. We'd appreciate it.